the enemy. And in that chemical warfare, we'll see sometimes plants win the war, and sometimes animals win the war. But today it's about a pollination, and tomorrow about a seed dispersal and plants defense mechanism. So talking about plant and animal interaction, the different way to explain this topic. If ornithology is explaining you this topic, then birds are hero. If entomology is teaching you this topic, insects are hero. So I'm a botanist, so I've tried to maintain a balance. I'm a bit partial for plants, but I try to maintain a balance. So plant and animal have to interact with each other because they are part of food chain or food web, and they are dependent upon each other. And we'll have this presentation interactive. So we have this chat box, and keep typing it in a chat box. I'll be asking you for few questions, and I expect you to answer them in a chat box. So first, can you type in the chat box how animals are dependent upon a plant? How animals are dependent upon plants. So can you type it in a chat box? For food, Sangeeta ma'am has typed for food. Alok Chandrakar has typed for food. Only for food? No, some animals, for some animals, leaves are food. For other, nectar and pollen are source of food. And for shelter, yes. For home, yes. Many birds and small animals, for them, tree trunk they use tree trunk as a shelter. And not only birds, there are many insects who turn, twist, stick and stitch leaves to make their nest, to build their nest. Yes. So when we say nest, we usually think about birds, but there are many insects who are good in this, and monsoon is the best time to observe this nest. So now, can you type in how plants are dependent upon animals? How plants are dependent upon animals? For pollination and for seed dispersal. Yes, for pollination and mainly for seed dispersal. Animal can disperse them away from their mother plant, to avoid competition. And when animal die and decompose, it enriches a soil with nitrates, and this helps plants to grow. Animals give back what they have taken from a soil. So meeting each other demands. Now plant and animal can't talk like us, but they do have a language to communicate. They use color, fragrance and chemical. So before we start, I want to say that this topic will be easy to understand if we see things from animal and plants point of view. If we go at their level and try to understand their problem and see how brilliantly they solve it. Imagine yourself as an insect. You're flying in a field of greens. The one thing which has a power to draw your attention is a color. Color is like a calling. Color, which color do you want? Some plant literally do this. For example, they make color according to pollinator visibility. Observe this flower carefully, and you will notice two colors in this bunch. So can you type in which color you see? Can you type which two colors you can see in this bunch? Red and green. In a bunch, in this bunch, which two colors you can see? Red and yellow. Red and yellow. Red and yellow. Yes. Upper one is red and lower one is a yellow. Now don't tap anything. Think for a while what could be a reason for this. They are trying to say something. Initially these flowers were red in color, then they changed to yellow. Change in a flower color is an example of plant and animal interaction. Some flowers change their color to tell their pollinator, I don't have a nectar, please don't waste your time on me. Yellow means I don't have a nectar, and red color means I have a nectar. In some flower, pollination triggers a change in color so that flower can be more efficient and save their time save a time of themselves and of a pollinator. Now imagine if every time a pollinator visits this yellow flower and doesn't find a nectar, next time his chances of visiting these flowers will be less. So in many flowers, this change happens, but we can't see them with our naked eyes, like this one. Because these are not done for us. These are done for a specific pollinator. According to their visibility, this change happens. For example, you might have heard this saying, beauty lies in the eyes of beholder. Just like that, colors lies in the eyes of beholder. I have asked you which two colors you can see. They were different answer initially. Then everyone typed red and yellow. So just like that, what colors we humans can see, honeybee can't. Hummingbird can't. What honeybee can, we human can't. For example, these flowers are pollinated by a hummingbird, and here you can see they can see red color easily. That's why nectar full, flowers which are full of nectar are in red color, and you can see they can't see yellow color. That's why one which lacks a nectar are in yellow color. So hummingbird can't see this yellow color, so they will not visit this flower. So you can see flower has changed color according to a pollinator visibility. As they can see red, nectar full flowers are in red color and nectar less are in yellow color. This was for hummingbird. So plants know that jo dikhta hai wo dikhta hai. So if you want to attract butterflies in your garden, you need to plant this color flower. If you want to attract a bee, this color. They say insects pollinated flowers are usually in yellow color and birds pollinated flowers are usually in red color. But smell and fragrance also attract a pollinator. For example, bee may not able to see a red color but may drawn to rose due to its fragrance. They can see ultraviolet marking present on red flower, which we are fail to see. So you may see a bee is attracting to a red flower, but it might be getting attracted due to ultraviolet marking present on the red flowers. And most of the night pollinated flowers are more dependent upon fragrance more than a color. So in screw fruit or murursheni, this is one of the common forest plant, and in this flower change color irrespective of pollinator visit. First day they will be bluish gray in color, and second day they will turn into a light red, and third day they will turn into a dark red. So bees collect a nectar mostly from a first day, and birds collect a nectar mostly from a second and third day. In case of Madhumalati, it has three colors. It blooms in evening. So first bees get attracted to it. At night, hawk moth get attracted to it. When it's in pink color, at that time some species of butterfly. When it turns red color, other species of butterfly. Now this floral change can be inducible or non-inducible. Inducible means flower change color after pollen is deposited on stigma. Pollination triggers a color change. However, this flower will change color as they age, even without a pollinator activity. As they age, even a leaf change. So even a flower change color as they age. So non-inducible. We just saw, flower change color without, regardless of pollinator visit. First day they were white, second day they were pink, and third day they were red. And in some species, entire flower color changes. And you can see here, entire flower color changes. But in some, in some petal color changes, in some center of the flower color changes. Change occur basically from the point which is easily noticeable for a pollinator. So in Lantana, you can see The center colors remain the same, sideway colors changes. So depending upon the species, this change happens. So now can you type in, this is one of the commonest roadside plant. Can you type in a name of this plant? Which plant is this? Gulmohar, yes, it's a gulmohar. You might have seen a gulmohar, you know, and you might have wondered why it has one odd petal. Why don't it have all the petals red in color? You know? Yes, Maya has typed this correctly. One petal is a line. So why don't it has why it has one odd petal, and why don't it has all the petals? Why it has four red petals and one odd petals? Now let's see what problem a flower will face if it has all the petals red in color. You know, imagine yourself as a pollinator sitting at a center of a flower, and all the petals are red in color. Now imagine all the petals are red in color, and nectar is stored in one of these petals. So in order to get a nectar, you need to peek below every flower petal. You know, you need to peek below every flower petal, and it's time consuming, it's irritating. There are chances you may not visit this flower next time. So to make pollinator job easy, it has one odd petal, and nectar is stored right below this. And you can see androecium and gynoecium, male or female part of the flowers, are just opposite to this, so that if bee is taking a nectar, if an insect is taking a nectar, it can dust a pollen or receive a pollen if bee has brought any. So these four petals are act like an advertisement board. You know, they say a pollinator. You know, it's like idhar aao, idhar aao. The moment insects visit here, and the first thing comes to insects, men aa to gaye but jana kidhar hai. Then this odd petal tell them idhar. You know, this is called a nectar guide because it's guiding a pollinator where a nectar is. So in these flowers, can you tell me which is a nectar guide? You know, can you type in a color? Can you type in which is a nectar guide in this? So again, nectar guide can be specific to pollinator. You know, if pollinator sees a red color clearly, then nectar guide will be of red color. If they see blue color, yes, brown color. So in this brown, so try to read flower from next time. Again, there are specific nectar guide. You know, many nectar guide are specific. Only few pollinators can see them. Now, one reason I think nectar guides are specific because see this distance. Suppose this is pollinated by bee. So when bee visit this, its body will touch to a male part and a female part. They can dust a pollen and receive a pollen if it's carrying any. Now imagine ant or mosquito size. You know, if they can see this, if they can see this nectar guide, they will enter into it, take a nectar and come out without pollinating it. So that's why most of the time nectar guides are specific. And again, you know, some flowers have tiny hairs inside this corolla to prevent small insects from entering. So specific nectar guides they have. So can you type in which is a nectar guide in this flower, which is a nectar guide? Can you type in color of a nectar guide? Pink. Gayatri just says pink. Sangeeta, pink. Right. And you can see this is an open flower. So it's an open flower. So insects can visit from different sides. And you can see androecium and gynoecium, you know, male and female parts are also arranged in such a way that if it's visit from this side, they can, you know, dust a pollen and receive a pollen. So most of the flat flowers have this kind of nectar guides. And again, in this, you can see most of these funnel-shaped flower have tiny hairs here to prevent other insects getting in. And some, again, you can see a nectar guide over here, and anther is just opposite to dust a pollen. And sometimes flower have overlapping nectars so that they can attract bee and bird same at a time. And can you type in a color of a nectar guide in this? Yellow, yes. Yellow. And when there are many flowers, when we see them, we feel, array, it has only one color. There are no nectar guide in this, but we can't see them. As we have seen, we can't see them. But honeybee can see a nectar guide. It's a UV nectar guide. If you have UV light, maybe you can see a nectar guide in that. Now we'll see criteria for nectar or bribe manufacture. Remember one thing: animal never visit a flower because they look pretty. They visit flower hoping to get a reward. Only human appreciate flower for their beauty. The first is target. For the first criteria is target a specific animal. Only pollinators should get a reward, and other animals should be excluded to avoid a wastage. That's why they have a nectar guide, so that they can target a specific species. Not only flower color, size, and shape, but also nectar is produced according to a pollinator requirement. For example, birds love dilute nectar, whereas insects like strong and sticky nectar. And bees feed on nectar as well as pollen. So bee pollinated flower produce both. And second is easy to manufacture. It costs lots for a flower to produce color, smell, to produce flower color, to produce flower fragrance, and it's an energy consumption process. So plant goal is jitna sasta ho sake utne saste mein it has to make a reward. It has to be low cost, readily available thing. And not only nectar, there are some plants which also produce a glue. Now, this glue bees collect to repair their hives, and some species of flowers also produce oil. This oil makes a good insect's bribe. Insects spray this oil on their body to attract opposite sex. Just like we buy perfume, in a similar way, insects smear this oil on their body to attract a female. Mostly male use this oil to attract a female. Control over manufacture, control over timing of a sale. Some plants know that my pollinator is active at 7 a.m. So they make sweetest nectar and more amount of nectar during that time. And again, control also means that a nectar or a bribe should be tasty enough so that pollinator wants more. And flower should provide a small amount of nectar each time. So why you feel that flower should provide a small amount of nectar each time? Can you type it in the chat box? It produces a small amount of nectar to yes, they don't visit a flower. If insects belly is full, they won't go in search of other flowers. And flowers are not interested in feeding insects. They want pollination to be done. And addictive nectar should be so addictive that insects fly and look for a similar flower. And and more the number of visit to a flower, the better a chances of pollination. So they want bees to visit them again and again. Yes. So some bees have a structure over here to collect a pollen. This is known as a pollen basket. This is a common garden plants known as plumeria. You might have seen this plant in a garden, and even in building compounds, it's a common. I love this plant because of its innocence, but we'll see how intelligent this plant is. There is a small poem to explain about this plant. It's like Champa tujhme gun hai teen, चंपा तुझ में गुण है तीन, रंग रूप और बास, अवगुण तुझ में एक है कि भवरा आए न तेरे पास. It has all the three qualities: color, beauty, and fragrance. Then why we don't visit this flower? So can you type it in a chat box why we don't visit this flower even after having all the quality? So bees are not interested in androecium, right? Like, pollinators want, because it lacks a nectar, so no use of beauty and fragrance if you lack a nectar for a bee pollination. Now, how they pollinated, just like other white flowers, even plumeria release a fragrance at night in order to attract a moth. Now, moth enter this flower thinking it's get a nectar. As plumeria don't eat a nectar, moth get fooled and plumeria get pollinated, fooling a moth. And this moth has this feathery antenna, to capture various fragrance. They're good at capturing fragrance, and mostly they're active in evenings. So fragrance is the one which the one which is used to attract them. And now there are two types of flower in general: generalist flower. Generalist flowers are like an open relationship. All sorts of pollinator can visit this flower because of their shape. Their shape is such that they are open, flat, and accessible to all. And even their color is such that it's visible to most of the pollinator, like off-white, yellow, or green. And they produce light fragrance, not too strong. If they produce a strong fragrance, it may act like a repellent for other insects. And most often these flowers are in single, but here it's a bunch of flower. This each individual yellow one is a flower. So this is a bunch of flower, and they are strong. They're pretty strong to bear a landing of these insects. They harshly land. So this need to be a strong. Flowers need to be strong to handle size, weight of the insects, and they produce a large amount of nectar. That's the reason why many species visit them. So advantage of generalist flowers are like they attract pollinator throughout the year. Throughout the year they attract a pollinator. They don't have to worry about season or climate change. They don't worry about insects getting extinct, animals are getting extinct. So these are the advantages. So can you type in a disadvantage? What a disadvantage can be? Can you type in disadvantage of being generalist flower? A disadvantage, maybe pollen get wasted because a flower may not visit a same pollinator may not visit a same flower. This may decrease a pollination efficiency, but it's not a complete failure. It has been observed. If just observe this picture and see this bee, see this pollen basket. It has been noticed that bee likes to collect. Bee visit a same flower. It don't have to visit a same flower, but it do visit a same flower. And you can understand this by a pollen basket. It's collecting a white color pollen. Here it's collecting a yellow one. It's collecting an orangish one. So they stick to some same flower for some time, not for a lifelong, but for some time they stick to a same flower. So they don't have to worry about a seasonal change, but sometime it may decrease a pollination efficiency. Then there are specialist flower. Specialist flower are something which are someone who fulfills the requirement of a pollinator. You can see a chat. Bats have a different requirement. They have a different requirement as compared to a birds. And you can see like bees need nectar as well as a pollen, but birds don't need a pollen. And for example, if we see, birds need a funnel shaped flowers, and mostly color their preference is orange or a red color. Nectar guides are not needed in case of bird pollinator. Odor is not needed in case of bird pollination. So they make a flower according to a specific pollinator. And for example, for birds are active during night. So flower blooms at a night. You can see they're mostly in white color. So color don't make sense during night, but a fragrance do make a sense. So they emit a fragrance of a fermenting fruit or fermenting fruit mostly of, and flower shape is such that it's mostly of funnel shape, or their petals are curved in such a way that it helps animal to locate flower using echolocation. And advantage of specialist it's pollinator have monopoly on food and shelter. Whatever plant flower is providing, they have a monopoly over that. And again, a specialist flower disadvantage is like if activity of a pollinator is less due to a season, they have to modify themselves according to a season. Or if they get extinct, bee bird or get extinct, a flower may suffer. Now we'll move to more complex thing. Now we'll learn about more specialist flower and more specialist species. Fig and wasps are like a best friend in a nature. They have a best friendship. So have you seen any attractive flowers on people or banyan tree? Like attractive, colorful, fragranceful flower on people or banyan? No. You might not have seen it. That's why there is a saying, जिस दिन उम्बर पे फूल लगेंगे उस दिन बात करेंगे. So if you don't want to talk on any topic, you say this, जिस दिन उम्बर पे फूल लगेंगे उस दिन बात करेंगे. They also say umbar ki fool ki tarah gayab hi ho gaya. The person who wrote this saying may not be knowing that what looked like a fruit is actually a flower. It has hundreds and tiny flowers. All these are flowers. So before we start with ficus pollination journey, I just want to teach you basics about fig flowers. Fig have these three types of flower. Fig have male flower and female flower. So these are the male flower. You can see a stem in here, and they are female flower. In female, there are two types. This one with a long style and another with a short style. For us to understand easily, we call it this as a female flower, this one as a gall flower, and this one as a male flower. You don't have to remember all this, just the basics. And only female wasps can enter into only female. No species can enter into a fig except a female wasp. And even figs are selective about which wasps. Peepal tree wasps cannot enter into a banyan tree, and banyan tree wasps cannot enter into a peepal. They are so specific. It's like a lock and key mechanism. Let's now learn about a wasp. This one is a male wasp, and this one is a female one, male and female. And you can see how small these are. I've placed them on a graph paper, and you can see how tiny they are. They are just 2 mm in size. And a female, this is an ovipositor, which is longer than a female body. This thing is used to lay eggs. Female lay egg using this. Then you can see size of a female body is 2 mm and size of this 3 mm. And female has an antenna and wings. Male lack all these things. What male has, it has strong teeth. We can't see this here, but male do have a strong teeth. Now we'll start with a female wasp journey. You know, imagine yourself as a female wasp, belly full of an eggs, flying and trying to find fig plants, of all the plants present in a street, of all the plants present in a forest. Female is trying to find a ficus plant. Now we'll see how this 2 mm creature will. Can you tell me how this 2 mm creature will find a ficus tree? Can you type it in a chat box how she will identify it's a ficus plant? Smell. Yes, obviously by communicating. Ficus releases a chemical signal, a kind of chemical. Maybe it might be a fragrance which help them to find a tree. And again, they release a chemical so that only their wasp can get a smell. So this was like completing a first level of a game. Once she finds a fig, then she has to cross a next barrier. A 2 mm size fig wasp can easily pass through an eye of a needle, but passing into a fig is much difficult. She has to completely squeeze, twist, and turn her body to get into it. It's her fig. They are specific, but still she has to make this effort to get into this. While doing this, while squeezing her body, most of the time she loses her antenna and wing. Finally, she gets in. After she gets in, the fig, closes this gap. Whatever small gap has been created while she's getting in, fig wasp releases a chemical and closes this hole. And this process, so that no one get into it, so that no other animal can get into it. But this process turns a dead trap for a female wasp. It's like बाहर से कोई अंदर ना आ सके और अंदर से कोई बाहर ना जा सके. So it's completely a dead trap. So once she gets into a wasp, she starts laying an egg, and she starts laying an egg. In that process, she pollinates the flower. For example, this is a female flower and this is our oviposture. This oviposture can't reach till here. The style is longer than her oviposture, so it can't reach over here. So this flower get accidentally pollinated, but oviposture can reach till gallflower. So she lays an egg in gallflower. So here seeds, as it got pollinated, seeds start developing here, and here wax starts developing. It's gallflowers are one which provide food and shelter to a wasp. So after a month, wasp matures, they chew, they make a hole and get out. So male and female wasps emerge out from a gallflower. After emerging out, they mate. After mating, female is ready to lay an egg, and to lay an egg, she need to get out of this fig. So male wasp, as I told you, he has a strong teeth. So he makes in a hole here. These are bracts. So he makes in a hole here so that female can leave. From here. So when female entered into a fig, at that time, female flowers were active. While female is leaving, at that time, male flowers are active. So when female is leaving, their male flowers are present. So when she is leaving, this male flower dusts a pollen on them, and this male never leaves a fig. He born and die. He never sees a sunlight. He never sees a world outside a fig. He's born in fig. He dies in fig. His only job is to mate with a female and make way for the female. So while leaving, a pollen are dusted on them. So they are carrying eggs and pollen, and they're finding for another fig tree to lay an egg. And after female has left a fig starts getting mature. Fig changes its color. They start smelling good to attract an insects, to attract animals. Fig is known as keystone species because they provide food. They provide fruits throughout the year. So that's why it's a keystone species. So moving on next, just like a fig and wax, there is another interesting association, but it works slightly different way. That is yucca and yucca moth. Some called this as a yucca. You can yucca or yucca moth. Now, just like a fig, even yucca has its own pollinator. That's a moth. Even they have each species has its own pollinator. So during spring, adult moth emerge out from underground cocoon, and as soon as they come out, they start looking for a partner. As there is no coffee shop in a nature, they meet at a yucca plant. The male and female meet here, fall in love, and then mate. After a mating, female is ready to lay an egg. First, she goes to a flower and collect a pollen. After mating, she's ready to lay an egg. But before laying an egg, she collects a pollen. Female has this strong tentacles, using which she scrapes of pollen from this male part, take that pollen, sticks over her head. After taking this pollen, now she'll fly off to another flower which has been recently opened. This is very important. I'll repeat it. She collects a pollen and flies off to a flower which has been recently opened. Recently opened. So once she reach a flower, she goes down where plant ovary is. She lays an egg over there. After laying an egg, she flies up, look for a female part, and deposit a pollen she was carrying. Now, can you type it in a chat box? Why moth is putting an effort to pollinate a plant? So far, we have seen pollination happens accidentally. While they are taking a nectar, usually it happens, or while they are laying an egg, it happens accidentally. Here, female is making an effort to pollinate this plant. They are collecting a pollen, then they are dropping a pollen at a female part. So can you tell me why they are doing so? It's giving a shelter for the species. Yes, good reason. Good reason. Any other reason? Only one answer, Brisi. To understand what benefit this moth gets, we need to understand a flower morphology. For example, just like human female has an ovary, inside ovaries there are eggs. In a similar way, plant too has an ovary, and inside the ovary there are ovules. These are ovules. So after pollination, this ovary turns into a fruit, and ovules turns into a seed. So female is laying an egg over here. So her baby will develop here, and they will eat these seeds as food. So even while laying her egg, she carefully drills a hole here and lays her babies over here. babies are developing here. And so if if pollination doesn't happen, seeds will not develop, and if seeds don't develop, there will be no food for babies. That's why she doing a pollination. After a pollination is done, uh, she releases a pheromone, she before leaving the flower, and she lays a few eggs in each flower. She knows that flower can feel a weight. If flower can feel if plant can feel flowers are heavy, they will press a button, mission abort. If she lays more eggs, plant will abort that flower. Plant know कि इसमें मेरा फायदा कुछ नहीं है. If she has laid a lot of egg, insects will eat all the seeds, and इसमें मेरा फायदा कुछ नहीं है. So that's why she knows that she needs to lay small amount of eggs in each flower. And after laying an egg, she release a pheromone, a kind of a scent, which is a kind of communication for other for other moth. It's like, please don't lay your eggs into it. If you lay your eggs into this flower, na tumhare bacche bachenge, na mere bacche bachenge. So this kind of communication even moth have within themselves. So if another moth, if she feels that, she will leave this flower and try to lay egg in other flowers. So this kind of efficiency they have. So her babe which develop inside a fruit, there are many seeds, so they eat few of the seeds. After eating seeds, they drill hole from here. Mostly they do it during a rainy season when a soil is wet, so they can get inside the soil. They can form underground cocoon, and they can come out during a spring when they can mate and reproduce. So this was about again yucca and yucca moth. Next, moving on, we'll be talking about Ceropegia. Now, Ceropegia has trapping kind of pollination. Trapping pollination means it's like kidnapping an insects. Kidnapping an insects and ransom for freedom is a pollination. Insects get into a flower due to its flower fragrance, and Ceropegia structure is such that once insects get into them, it's very difficult for insects to go out, because they have downward pointing hairs, because their surface is slippery. The more insects is trying to get out, they will be pulled down. So while struggling to get out, in that process, pollination is done. So they trap insects for a few hours to 1 day, 1 or 2 days. So after that, it is expected that during this time, somehow pollen are deposited, or somehow pollen are get attached to insects. So once that is done, in next day, this pointed downward pointing hairs fall off, and slippery structure, somewhat that slipperiness get reduced, and bird is free to flow out. So there are many species who does this trapping thing. Next is buzz pollination. There are some certain types of bees who feed, as I told you, feed on nectar as well as pollen. So there is something called as buzz pollination. Bee make a buzzing sound. So it is said that some plants are programmed to release a pollen after feeling a vibration. Again, it has to be a specific frequency. And when people have tested that, using this frequency did help. Using a specific frequency, if we just use a frequency, a flower releases a pollen. Pollen is released from an anther due to a bee vibration. anther can feel a vibration. Due to that, pollen are expelled out. So we'll see a video. In trap mechanism, bees again get fooled. They somehow again get fooled again and again. So we'll see this video. So we saw, using tungsten, they are vibrating anthers. Due to vibration, it's doing it. So now we'll see, how well insects, just how well insects understand a plant and try to blend with their nature, with their surrounding. How beautifully they get camouflage. You can see here, how beautifully it's getting camouflage. It's mimicking nerves. Okay. I thought this is a Photoshop. Then I got to know they are a group of leaf-tailed gecko. They are like this, they completely get camouflage in dry leaves. Most of these color species, they forage on forest floor. That's why they usually get camouflage like this to save themselves from a predator, or to attack some species. And you can see the nerves. And this same species of a butterfly, and how differently they got camouflage. And you can see, they are mimicking fungus, just like leaves which is getting decomposed. How they developed a fungus, they are mimicking it. They are different moths. Bark camouflage, how well they understand. You can get this. Yes, that was a blue oak leaf. And you can see a twig. It's a flower, not only a bark, not only a leaf, not only a dry leaf, green leaf. They even understand a flower structure, color, shape. Now we'll see how well plant understand an animal. So far we have seen how animal take advantage of plants to save them. Let's see how plant take advantage of animals. So far we have seen plants attract pollinators using nectar, color, fragrance. But this orchid have evolved to offer a mate. Orchid has evolved to resemble like a female version of a certain insect species. This orchid look like a female bee, not just by a look. The orchid has evolved to produce a pheromones which female produce during a breeding season. So male bees are attracted to this orchid, thinking it as a female. And orchid petal and texture are such that male do feel like mating with a female. The petal hairs kind of stimulate a male bee. So while mating, during that process, a pollen sac get attached to a male body, and in breeding season, a male bee wants to mate with as many as female. So during that season, many orchids get pollinated. So here, orchid is mimicking a female. Here, orchid is mimicking a male. So can you type in why to attract, why it's mimicking as a male? Now don't say it's mimicking as a male to attract a female. Female are smart, they don't get attracted to this kind of tricks. This orchid is mimicking like a male to attract another male. It's kind of when male sees this kind of orchid, they feel कि अरे मेरे इलाके में कौन आया. They have this they want to protect their territory. It's like मेरे इलाके में कौन आया, तो कौन है मेरे इलाके में आया. So they start fighting with this flowers. So in that process, this pollinia get stick to them, and this is how an orchid gets pollinated. So as I told you, flower make things according to a pollinator preference. There are certain plants which attract scavengers, to avoid competition. There are many species already attracting bees in other insects by making a fragrance-full odor, beautiful colors and structure. There are certain species which have evolved to attract beetles and flies by emitting a rotten flesh-like a smell, and this is the best aroma for them. It's like a fragrance of food, because insects, there are many insects which feed on them. Some beetles lays eggs on them, so that as soon as eggs are hatched, the babies get a food. So flower colors are in shade of red, maroon. They look like a meat, and they even produce a heat, just like a decayed meat produce. Just like in a similar way, they produce a color, fragrance, and heat. Some plant even in this category. So the eggs which are laid over here won't survive, but while laying egg, somehow flower gets pollinated. So some plants of this category may provide a nectar to a pollinator, so it will have some energy to visit another flower to transfer a pollen. Next we'll see, carnivorous plant. See, herbivores go out to look for a plant, but for insectivorous plant or for a carnivorous plant, it's like dinner come to them. It's like Swiggy free home delivery. So first let's understand why these plants eat animals. So can you tell me why these plants eat when all plants are vegetarian, why they have turned into a non-vegetarians? Yes, carnivorous plants have evolved in a nutrients poor habitat, especially where nitrogen in soil is less. So to fulfill their nutrients requirement, they trap trapped animals, which visit them in search of food, and they've evolved sticky leaves, water pots, traps to catch animal. So main question remains, how they attract a pollinator, how they differentiate between food and friend, how they keep a prey and pollinator separate. So can you think about any mechanism, can you think about any idea how to separate a food and the prey and pollinator? Smell, good. So they have three mechanisms to do so. First, they have, the flowers are high above the ground to attract a pollinator, while traps are close on a ground to attract a crawling insects. And you can see they have a long peduncle like this, so that pollinators and insects, kind of they try to keep both of them separate. This can, and most of the time, many species have this underwater traps. You can see this. These are the traps, or in wet soil, underground traps. You know, to catch insects. So even here, the trap is underwater. Here, underground. So these are the traps, underwater traps, and this is a mosquito larvae. So this was the first technique. Second technique, they use temporal separation. Flower blooms first to attract a pollinator, and then they develop a trap. Then first flower is active, and then trap is active. So a kind of separation they maintain. Then they have, as Gayatri has said, smell different attractants. Flower use different kind of different attractants to lure insects. Kind of, so they produce such a color, nectar or UV pattern or nectar guide, so that pollinators get attracted to a flower. Sometimes they also release a chemical such that a trap, a trap is, they feel a trap is a kind of repellent. The trap is unattractive for them. In similar way, they kind of release a chemical so that for a prey, flower feels unattractive. You know, uh, so this was about a pollination. So, so start typing questions for this, and all the photographs which has been used in the presentation are copyrighted one. And I think someone has said they want to see a video again. So I just play this. So this was a presentation. Kindly type